Walt, welcome to August. It's a great time to go surfing. So get your board out and hit the waves. As we hit the waves, the autonomy market keeps on moving. Tesla announced an expansion of the Bay Area for a ride hailing service. You have some news from the Aurora earnings call. And Waymo, who's been the leader on the Road to Autonomy leaderboard for 6 consecutive quarters, has expanded to Dallas. And as our listeners and viewers know, not with Uber. I repeat, not with Uber. What do you make of Waymo's expansion to Dallas?
I think for listeners of Autonomy Markets, this is not a surprise. But as you may recall, and we did a podcast on this, and I think we sent some clips out on our social earlier this week. After Uber and Waymo launched in Austin, there was some citations of Yipit data showing the growth. And I think we picked apart that data on the podcast, talking about looking at Phoenix and San Fran and saying like, maybe this doesn't give the signal that everyone was interpolating about how, again, to the point that people thought that this meant that going forward, Uber and Waymo were tied at the hip, and look what a great job Uber did for Waymo. I don't want to take anything away from Uber and the value that they bring to Waymo in Austin, because they certainly do, perhaps primarily financially, in terms of what they're paying there. But like, I go back to what I've said many times. I just don't think the decision here has yet been made. So I'm not even going to say like, no, I'm going to go Uber negative on Uber, to use the term. My only point is I don't know, and I don't think anyone that insists that it's going to be Uber and Waymo in the future, or conversely insists that it's going to be Waymo and only in the future, I don't think either of them know. So I think the options are still open. But certainly you saw the reaction in the stock, Grayson. I mean, Uber stock was off like 5% on the news that, they launched Dallas without Waymo, or that Waymo launched Dallas basically without Uber.
The stock sold off, and then you and I know this, the headlines went crazy. Waymo launches market, leaves Uber behind. But as part of this announcement, there was a twist. If you want to use the terms, Waymo went home. They brought Avis along on this journey. Not a Move, not a Volmo, not Uber, but Avis. This is the first time they've had an agreement since 2017 in Phoenix. What do you make of Waymo bringing Avis to the table again?
I mean, I think this is par for the course. Like, Waymo is still in experiment mode, right? They're still, buying cars and putting sensors on them, at a location in Phoenix. They are not at what I think even they would consider is true kind of commercialization and scale. So they're going to partner with different people in individual markets. This is actually a positive for Uber, because I think Uber does want fragmentation in the market. And look, Avis is someone that's going to have locations at airports around the country. In this case, I would think that Uber wants to try and get involved with Avis. I don't think that they want to be left out in any of these markets in terms of what their participation is. So, but the Avis thing was not shocking, but again, I think interesting development on how we see this market evolving.
Avis has 10,250 rental locations in 180 countries, so they clearly have the real estate there. And reading the press release on Avis's investor relations page, Avis made it known very publicly, this is a multi-year deal. This is a multi-year deal. Could this be a multi-market deal? As we see Waymo's now going back for a second time to Nashville, could potentially Avis go to Nashville with them? And if Avis does, what does that signal to the market?
I think it certainly makes sense for them to continue to partner with Avis and whoever else out there, has these locations. I think, Grayson, I was able to infiltrate the PACCAR earnings call. Maybe I should infiltrate an Avis call. I don't even know, frankly, if they're public, and find out what is their capital investment plans in terms of bringing power to those locations. We know they've got cleaning and management. They're physically in good locations. They are distributed within cities. So this checks the box on all the things that you and I have discussed on this podcast historically, but I'm not sure where they are on powering some of these cars up, which is a critical item right now in terms of autonomy.
As you and I have seen, it's been well documented, well reported on. Historically, the rental car industry has struggled with electrification, electric charging infrastructure. Perhaps that could change. And yes, Walt, the Avis Budget Group is publicly traded, and they have one of the greatest tickers out there. CAR. That's the budget. That's their ticker. How great of a ticker is that?
That is a great ticker. I will try and get on the earnings call and ask about this deal and their commitment to investing and bringing power and superchargers to those locations.
Because in the investor relations release from Avis, They stated that the company is going to do end-to-end services, including infrastructure, vehicle readiness, maintenance, and depot operations. No mention of power, so I think we need to get you on the earnings call to get some clarity there.
Well, the maintenance thing I also want to bring up, though, because maintenance in the context of Waymo, as we know it today, is more than just cleaning out that car. It's, checking out the sensors and recalibrating and doing all of those things that you and I saw and posted videos about in Austin, and I also saw in LA. So are we to believe that Avis is going to invest in the engineers that know how to fix, replace, and calibrate these sensors?
There has been a lot of dialogue in the industry. SAE International, through their ITC division, has been leading this, doing a really good job of, I'll use the term very loosely, of building a best practice, of getting all the engineers together to build a best practice, how to maintain autonomous vehicles. So that's been happening. So let's just say, hypothetically, you work for Avis, this individual works for Waymo, this individual works for AV Ride, to have a set standard to create job creation. So there is a lot of movement in the industry. Nothing formal yet, but there is a lot of movement coming on.
Was there any indication, Grayson, in that press release that this is exclusive? I mean, I know we were expecting AV Ride to launch in Dallas with Uber at the end of the year. So two questions for you. A, is it possible that AV Ride can utilize Avis as well? And B, do you think that Waymo's decision to do Waymo 1 was as opposed to with Uber was because that they knew that Uber already had a partner in this market in AV Ride?
That very well could be, because we have not seen an Uber autonomy market where there are multiple autonomous vehicles running on that. So that could be perhaps Waymo wanted to protect their brand. And if the relationship with Uber does continue, do we eventually see a Waymo 1 app in the tier? That's something to watch. But you bring up a very good point with AV Ride. Perhaps that's why it is. And in the official IR press release, there was no mention of exclusivity. And the other thing there was no mention of who's going to own the assets either.
I think we're just going to assume, for sake of argument, that as always, Waymo will own those assets. And once again, when this market opens, we'll go to Dallas, great city, check it out, flip down that sun visor, and probably see the same thing that we saw in Austin, property of Waymo. Now, whether the economics are such that, even though they technically own it, maybe Avis has some type of financial relationship where, they're providing some capital, in terms of lease payments or otherwise, that effectively help Waymo expand into that market. Again, these are all things that I think we just need to do more work on to understand, how those relationships work. So you don't think AV Ride is exclusive, in that market to Uber, or that AV Ride, or that the Avis relationship is exclusive to Waymo, that there's an opportunity for perhaps some cross-pollination among those companies?
I am under the assumption that the AV Ride Uber Dallas market is exclusive. From a maintenance standpoint, we have no indicators of the market. I could easily see Avis building up, if you want to call it, an autonomy ready business and scaling that. And I could also see Hertz doing that. I can also see Enterprise doing that, or any of the other rental car companies. And so I'm really looking for, when did the rental car companies come back into the market? Because they were really hot and heavy in 2018. We saw announcement after announcement. In 2018, Hertz put out a press release managing the 75 vehicles, the Aptiv fleet in Las Vegas. Enterprise was doing the management of the Voyage vehicles in the villages. And Enterprise also, through their Enterprise Mobility division, also invested in Voyage. So there's a history of rental car companies getting involved in this industry. Nothing has happened yet, but we got to kind of see really where this goes from here.
We're almost at a year of doing this podcast. And the reason we did this in the first place was the inflection point that we both saw in the autonomy market. And that has only, like AI, accelerated as the year has gone by. So if you're anywhere touching this industry, whether you're an OEM, whether you're a car rental company, whether you are a rideshare company, it's coming and it's coming fast. So I think any past involvements are getting rethought. These are on the whiteboards of the boardrooms of these companies. So yeah, 100%, I would think that these rental car companies are going to be coming hot and heavy, because it's not hard for anyone to imagine the impact to rental car companies when autonomy truly hits. There's private ownership of autonomous cars, and there's autonomy, within the rideshare program. So yeah, I mean, the writing's on the wall there, Grayson.
And let's not forget, the current CEO of Hertz is Mr. Gil West, friend of the show, really great gentleman on a personal level, former COO of Cruise, and before that, COO of Delta. Mr. West understands logistics and operations just about better than anybody, understands turnarounds. He has the history, he has the experience, and we all know he has the knowledge. I'm going to ask you to make a little bit of prediction here. In 2026, do we see Hertz dip their toe in to follow Avis?
26? Why not 2025? I mean, it's only August, and at the pace that this industry is evolving, I would think that they're going to be in there with an announcement in 2025. I mean, I've seen this. Companies are always reactive. You want them to be proactive if you're the investor, but they typically are. They see their competitor or peer do something. They go back to the boardroom, they reevaluate, they get the updates on where autonomy is, and like, oh, maybe we should probably be doing something, and then they reach out. By the way, the other company not mentioned anywhere here was Lyft, right? Lyft, Waymo was something that was at one point, however many months ago, something that was contemplated, not even in the dialogue in terms of Dallas or additional markets. What do you think's going on there?
I think Lyft has lost the narrative. And I'm really not sure, and I say this with all due respect to Risher and the Lyft team, announcing shuttles is making a 2015 announcement. I don't see where Lyft is going. I feel that they're adrift, and they really need to get that major tier 1 partner to go into autonomy, or they're going to have to, as you said, go back to the drawing board.
And meanwhile, Waymo is plowing forward. Number 1 on your industry leaderboard, as you mentioned, another market getting launched, showing that they can partner with a variety of partners and see who wins. Like, they are in the quote unquote driver's seat, even though there's no one in the driver's seat like there are for others. And Grayson, I also noticed on Twitter that one of their engineers was showing himself on a highway. I think, was the driver out, or was there someone in the driver's seat there? I think the driver was out on the highway in California. So maybe some indication that they're getting closer to what we've talked about, for week after week as a potential huge unlock for Waymo to get on the highways, which will then also unlock the airports, assuming they get through some of the regulatory issues there.
You post the video, the first thing I respond to it, I said, "When's the Great Highway Lock coming?" Crickets, crickets, crickets. But you're right. It is an indicator that it is coming sooner rather than later.
I mean, unless this is just like a rogue engineer that's just so excited to be in the car that he posted something he shouldn't. We'll have to monitor that account and see if it's still exists in a couple of days. But certainly, I think a good sign for Waymo, and again, shows this kind of pace of evolution of autonomy, and why when we're modeling this stuff out over the next 3, 5, 10 years, how quickly we can see those miles traveled potentially shift to autonomous from human drivers.
I got a feeling it is an official account, because Waymo's head of communication said, "Great shot, great angle." So that leads to me to believe that this is not a rogue engineer. And if you want to stay in the topic of rogue, no, this is not a Star Wars remake that wasn't very good that they went rogue to make. The Boston City Council is going rogue and trying to ban Waymo, not just Waymo, but all autonomous vehicles from Boston. They are citing safety concerns. They are citing job concerns. Well, you know what's really interesting about that, Walt? You see, this week we had the very big news in railroads that Union Pacific and North Fork Southern are going to merge. And lo and behold, the same talking points are out. Safety and jobs. This is just boilerplate politics. What do you make of this resistance in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the city of Boston to say, nope, we don't want you?
My view on this are pretty consistent. Resistance is futile, as they say, that, this is inevitable. These are, though, speed bumps that you have to deal with from market to market. It's funny because, Massachusetts and Boston, pushes itself as this like technology forward area. They have all these universities. They've got that whole new tech area that they've invested in, and to kind of circle the wagons and go old school like this and NIMBY it, which I've seen in many industries before, is disappointing, but that's fine. There'll be other states that will move forward without them, and then they will feel pressure from their own citizens to change or effectively get voted out, but this is just a politics game, which you're probably more familiar with than me. So what are your thoughts on how this plays out and timeline?
First thing, Walt, did I hear a Bostonian accent come out? Is that what I heard?
Well, I'm currently in Massachusetts in the moment, so sometimes it rubs off on me.
Okay, so Walt's got a little Boston flair there. And how this works out, it's going to be complicated because there are 2 city councils that have proposed an ordinance, Walt, that would prohibit commercial vehicles. And as part of that ordinance, and I'm going to read this for you quote for quote, you have to do a study. And this is, you can't file this under, you can't make this up. So we have unforced error, we have the file, you can't make this up. And I'm going to read this for you. In quote, following the study's completion, the advisory committee, which will have to include representatives from the App Drivers Union, the Greater Boston Labor Council, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and the local United Food and Commercial Workers Union, would recommend to the mayor whether autonomous vehicles should be allowed to operate in the city at all, end quote. You can't make this up.
Yeah, fear. And where are the organizations that are there for mothers against drunk drivers? Or, anyone that wants to have safer roads and save citizens' lives for the, tens of thousands of people that are killed on our roads, nationally, because of poor driving. When do they get represented?
They should be represented now. They should be out there saying this is blasphemy. This is, I'll use the Donald J. Trump term. I'm sorry, there's paperwork now. This is rigged. I'll just say it based on what this is clearly rigged to ban autonomous vehicles in Boston. And I want to caveat that because at the state level, there is a preemption bill that's coming. And now what you're going to see Boston city councilors are going to look for a carve out where the preemption would not apply to the city of Boston. If that were to happen and they get the carve out, even if they get preemption at the state level, autonomous vehicles in the state of Massachusetts are dead on arrival. I'm very sorry, Walt. You can't go from downtown Boston to the Cape. It won't be possible because of what special interests got.
I think for the time being, though, it'll be fine because if you have service in Boston, it builds demand among the users there, and obviously out-of-towners can see the benefit to them. So I think that's at least something. And the United States is a large place, and I think you're going to see autonomy expand to a number of different markets. If Massachusetts wants to be left behind, then so be it for now. We'll see how that plays out. Where does the national framework, Grayson, play into this, if at all?
The national framework would preempt the city ordinance, it would preempt the state ordinance, and it would allow autonomous vehicles to despite this nonsense coming through, to operate in Boston because they are going to create a lot of good for the residents of Boston. And let's just call a spade a spade. We were all kids at one point, and when you go to college, you drink. And then this gives you a very safe alternative to get around, and it also gives women a safe way to get around Boston at night without the fear of driver. And we have data to back that up because Uber recently announced the woman driver for women. So there's precedence here. Waymo would be very good for Boston. It would make the roads safer, point blank.
I mean, you're talking about unforced errors. That's one of your favorite things. Isn't this an unforced error from local politicians where, let's say they're from one party and they're restricting this technology that saves, that makes it more safe for you, that allows your daughter or wife to travel in a car that doesn't have a driver, that potentially threatens them or at least creates some anxiety, on that ride. And then here comes in the federal government of a different party that says, like, no, we got your back. We're going to prevent your local politicians from doing this. Kind of an interesting juxtaposition of how politics can work.
Yeah, let's go enter the 36 chambers and I'll throw down some Wu-Tang for you. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. I mean, this is cream. Cash rules everything around me. Cream at the money. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. That's how this is clearly looking from a political donation standpoint, because it's Wu-Tang for the children here.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Autonomy Markets is now completely off the rails. Maybe we should shift to the next topic after that one. Do not edit that out. That was great. That was great.
I'm not editing that out because Wu-Tang for the children. Wu-Tang for autonomy. And I could digress, and I did meet several of those members, and I did see them perform before ODB passed away, and the Rage Wu tour was great. But I digress, and let's get on to the next topic here. Tesla. Elon's got the cream. He's the world's richest man, staying on the Wu theme here. They launched a ride hail service in the San Francisco Bay Area. A very large ODD. They're charging for rides because the vehicles are owned by Tesla and their Tesla employees as the quote unquote safety attendants. What do you make of Tesla's move into one of the largest ride hail markets in the world?
I mean, fine. I understand it. It's good, I guess, because you're in the market, but I already don't like the optics because, this guy that's trying to promote Tesla and he's, I'm so excited because it's there. And all they're doing is showing a driver whose hands are like hovering right over the driving wheel. I'm like, I do that every day with not even maybe that Robotaxi software. So it's unfortunate that California, has these restrictions, but it at least enables, Tesla to move forward, at least in that state. But I think it highlights why they should be expanding, to Dallas, Houston, whatever, other states, rather than even bother with California with this type of nonsense where they have someone in the driver's seat.
I asked the same thing, and I said, why the heck are you going to California? They told me it's one of the largest ride-hailing markets, and that's why they're going there. As they go through the CUPC, which is the California Public Utilities Commission's process to get the permit to go drive out to charge, this is all going to come out in public filings. The thing what we need to watch on Autonomy Markets, who opposes Tesla for these permits and why? So we need to watch those hearings. As I said, it's all going to be public. Videos are out there. Documents are going to be out there. That's going to be something very, very, very interesting to watch.
Yes, it is. And my prediction is going to be that some of these people won't even be able to contain themselves by bringing in their views about Elon to what should be their objective views about whether you want to have driver out in this market. We'll watch. I hope I'm wrong. But I'm guessing that they're so dumb that they won't even hold back in conflating two different things. I understand if you've got concerns about the safety or you want to debate LiDAR, this, that, and the other thing. But we all know, the underlying kind of issues that happens. In fact, even as it relates to, what Tesla's doing in Austin, I mean, everyone lost their brains when like the Tesla car pulled in momentarily because it was in the wrong lane, back into the right lane when there was no actual, immediate threat. Obviously, the car would have stopped if there was immediate threat to an accident. But these same people that were tweeting at me, where's your tweet about the 2 Waymo cars that just got into an accident in Phoenix? And are you now calling for Phoenix to shut down all operations because of this? And again, I'm not picking on Waymo because I think, who knows what the backstory was there. It was a small fender bender. And, again, it's my belief that this is the process that we're going through to get to reducing the tens of thousands of people that are dying on our roads and changing our economy by utilizing AI to push autonomy forward.
Yes, and that if that incident that occurred in Phoenix was Tesla, it would be national headlines. It would be out with pitchforks to get it. It's two sides to a story. It's really, truly amazing because no matter if you're pro Waymo, you're pro Tesla, you're pro autonomy, autonomy is going to save lives. It's going to make our road safer. It's going to give my grandmother the ability to go to the beauty parlor and have a gin and tonic without having to worry about getting attacked by a driver. It's going to give children the ability to go to school. It's going to give children the ability to go to better charter schools, to go to private schools, so their parents can't drive them there. Autonomy unlocks the economy. And to sit there and attack this because you don't like this or you don't like this or you're invested in LiDAR, it's nonsense. Drop it. Autonomy is good for everybody.
I don't think they should drop it, but maybe a little less hyperbole. It's important to focus on safety and debate the topics. I kind of sense your frustration. I'll give you another example. I just saw a video where there was a Tesla going around in a circle because the person was trying to see how it would react when cones blocked off. Someone took a snippet of that and like, oh my God, this thing's going around in circles, shut down the whole program. Once again, I remember an almost identical video from Waymo where a car was going around in a circle and the guy was talking to, someone on whatever the service. No one was at threat of being injured. It was just, part of what that process was. It was quickly resolved in both cases. When I say quickly, like, okay, it's going around in circles. It didn't have to, get resolved in 5 minutes. If it was about to hit someone, it might have stopped or it would have stopped. So it's the double standard is, I think it's getting a bit a bit much. And I think now we maybe should have a segment every week calling out the double standard.
Yes, and we need to identify who's on the Waymo sports team and who's on the Tesla sports team, because this seems like this is a heated rivalry here.
I mean, that's perfect. That's fine though. I mean, and when you're early in game-changing technologies, people get what I call religion on the names that they like, and this drives stocks up and it drives stocks down. But you get very dug-in camps that want to hear one version of it. I hope we don't do that. Obviously everyone's human. They're going to have their biases. We're going to challenge ourselves and continue to challenge us, in the various ways that you can online or with direct emails about where you think that we're not keeping an open mind, but we're keeping an open mind to both. And just to restate, Waymo is clearly the leader now. There's no doubt about that. And to also clearly state, AI changes a lot of things, including autonomy.
I mean, AI is changing the economy. Just look at the growth of Microsoft and Meta last night from the earnings. Those were incredible growth metrics there. We're going to get Amazon tonight, and I'm sure we're going to see growth in AWS. Unsure, but I'm sure based on that, we probably will. The interesting thing, if you look at it from the growth perspective, to me, even though Tesla is going into a market that they're not ready from a regulatory standpoint, to me, it signals that they are very, very serious about Robotaxi. The ODD goes all the way from San Jose to Berkeley. Remove the regulatory environment. They're operating full drive route. Any estimates of how many thousands of vehicles they're going to need to keep the wait time, say, sub 10 minutes?
I mean, that's way too early for us to start speculating on that. But I think it is, I think, valid for you to point out the size of the ODD. The theory would be that if that goes well in that large ODD and they can go drive her out from a regulatory standpoint, they do. And it's not like an Austin situation where it kind of starts here, gets to a larger object type size thing, and then maybe gets larger from there. When do you think, by the way, that Austin will increase its footprint for the Robotaxi?
So we're recording this on July 31st. We're looking at our third expansion, I would say by the end of September, for the third Austin expansion.
Wow, that late. I disagree. I'd say by the end of the summer, we're going to see a notable expansion in Austin with Tesla. And I would also say you're going to start seeing other good signal, meaning, different people that they're going to allow in there, adding more cars. I think there's already some indication of a car. I think I saw a tweet that Ed Ludlow is going to be heading to Austin in September. So I'm sure if he's a Bloomberg reporter, so clearly, Tesla's getting to the point where they're broadening out the type of people. As if this is the first podcast you're listening to, you should check our one from several weeks ago where Grayson and I spent 3 days, in Austin checking out the service there.
The service was impressive. And I'll give you another prediction. I would say by October, no safety attendant fully open to the public in Austin.
It's a good one, too. All right, we got a lot of good predictions for Tesla. Let's hope they deliver.
We have a lot of good predictions, but I want to get back to California and look at the future. And again, I'm going to ask you from a hypothetical standpoint. I know you really don't want to forecast, but I have to ask you. Tesla's operating full Robotaxi in the state of California, licensed by the CUPC. Waymo is operating full drive route, as they have been for years now. What impact does that have on Uber?
Again, it'll depend on the number of cars. It'll depend on, are they going to the airport, and it'll depend on the highway miles. We've already seen the impact on Uber in terms of the numbers, and many argue that Waymo's already larger than Lyft in some of these markets, so that obviously is going to expand it even further for them. So, and I think in the case of Uber, it is such a large company. It is a global company, right? This is a huge business. It's less about the actual financial impact in the near term. It's the implications on what this means for their business in the long term. Because then you get more people's light bulbs going off and they look at autonomy and they say, what's that autonomy mix in 5 or 10 years? And what's Uber's share, assuming autonomy is there? And how much is that reliant on partnering with Waymo and what Tesla's impact? So I think it's really more about, and this is what stocks do, Grayson. They discount future revenue. It's not about what you did, it's about what you're about to do. And I think that's the bigger implication as things expand in California.
Let's move on to trucking. This week, David Welch from Bloomberg put out an article about autonomous trucking and their safe approach to scaling and ramping up commercial service, with companies looking at 2026 and 2027 to really ramp up from an industry perspective. What is your thoughts on how the autonomous trucking industry is approaching commercialization.
Yeah, I mean, interesting article, and he's right. And everyone's got a focus on safety. Even if you went back to the Tesla earnings call, the comments around safety were preeminent. And I think this speaks to Aurora. They have this kind of saying, crawl, walk, run, or whatever they're talking about, as they should, right? You have these large trucks that are in the market. In the case of Aurora, which has a lead on the competition, it's questionable how many years or months or weeks that might be. Maybe they better start running, soon, because they've been crawling and walking, for an extended period of time. And, I think when we go to the Aurora call specifically, there was a lot of questions that stemmed from that question I asked on the PACCAR call a week ago, just saying like, hey, when can you actually pull that driver out of the driver's seat? And it didn't sound like it was happening in 2025. It sounded like at the earliest you're thinking is a 2026 event.
That's what the clear indicators on the call. What if another autonomous trucking company hypothetically launched driver out commercial paid operations before Aurora? Do people start to then question their approach to this?
Well, Aurora already has paid operations, so they did book $1 million of revenue, which generated a great quarter, guys, for them on their earnings call. So they already have paid operations. But to your point, there is someone, what they would call an observer, sitting in the driver's seat. I got confirmation from their CFO that, in fact, that observer, I guess, never touched the wheel or whatever. So that's in their minds. That's where they're at. I also did see a video on LinkedIn of a Kodiak truck that was on a road. And I think one of the criticisms that have existed about Kodiak relative to Aurora is like, oh, it's just in the basin. These are not real roads, and, discounting the weather challenges that Kodiak has. And now we're seeing videos of a truck on the road. I don't know. Did you see that same video that I did?
I saw it on YouTube, a matter of fact, and it was from 4 years ago, and the truck was driving.
Oh, 4 years ago.
At night. 4 years ago, Kodiak was driving at night. Then Aurora just stated that they just started it, but Kodiak was doing it 4 years ago because there's video proof.
Yeah, the night weather thing, Aurora appears to be making progress on. They were really emphasizing that on their earnings call. But again, like the issue is, if for this economically to work, you obviously have to have the driver out of that seat. Now, it's early. Who cares if the driver's in the seat? You're still proving out, I think, the technology, adding lanes. It's kind of like criticizing Waymo to say, hey, you have a $150,000 car. No, you're just trying to establish the market first. So I'm going to give them Aurora a pass for having an observer. It's not their decision to do that. It's the requirement of these OEMs. I'm a little disappointed that it sounds like when Volvo delivers them trucks, they will also be these prototype type trucks. So if they get them in 2025, the Volvo trucks for Aurora will also have effectively a safety driver there. But hopefully as we progress to 2026, they can get the drivers out of both of them. And that's going to rely on me going back to PACCAR and be like, when are your production line trucks going to be available, when you have all your parts in there and not, some of these prototype parts? So what's your view on if and when PACCAR gets to that point?
I don't know if PACCAR will ever get to that point. And I say that very bluntly. I am unsure if PACCAR will ever get to that point.
Well, I disagree with that, because why would they be wasting time developing a truck that has redundancy in it? Or do you think that even that development of a truck that has their own redundancy in it, the timeline for that production vehicle is not going to occur even in 2026, that it's a 2027 timeline?
I'm not going to give a timeline or speculate on when it might happen. I will give a prediction that the next time Aurora removes a driver, not an attendant, not an observer, from the truck, it will be a Volvo V&L truck. And when that will most likely be in 2026, not 2025.
So getting back to PACCAR, first of all, I disagree, because at some point they have to look at their business, and if the future is autonomy, as we both agree, they have to make adjustments, right, in terms of what their plans are. Again, there's indications that they're building these trucks. I guess the question is, what if they get to production, right, and they have this truck, so they've defined that as, hey, we have all our own parts in there, we're fine with it. They still have to make that decision of like, we're fine with taking that driver out. And I still think there is apprehension, my sense is, at the senior level at PACCAR, for enabling that to happen. But I guess we'll just have to, see how this plays out. It unfortunately will not be playing out in 2025. In the meantime, Aurora can continue to get tens of trucks, continue on with Volvo, expand the routes. Like they're going to add this Phoenix to, I think, Dallas route, which is like 1,000 miles, and kind of prove out that model. And hopefully at some point we can get into one of these trucks ourselves. I'd be happy to sit in the back seat, even if you have the observer there, or I'll be observing online to see if there's any interventions when they're posting these videos online.
Watch the videos, but it just seems now, if you look at Google data, you look at general interest, that it seems that there's more interest in autonomous trucking with Kodiak and Plus preparing to go public this fall. Is the general interest is building? Is the investor interest also building in the sector?
Aurora's stock is up 5% after last night's print. I'm not sure they said anything on the call that necessarily justifies that. But yeah, it's still a very, there's a lot of cap valuation there. I think these SPACs are going relatively well. And there's interest in autonomy already, and there's just not a lot of ways to invest it. So 100%, I think, people care. We'll just have to see how things develop with Aurora. It's also, interesting in terms of the models. Again, Aurora is sticking to this, like, hey, they're dealing with carriers as opposed to what we talked about in prior podcasts, bot auto, like selling to the end customer. So we'll see if there are any challenges, because as they add trucks, even if it has the observer, we'll see if they face any challenges as signing up customers. So far, they've added one or two or three, right? These are small numbers. We'll see, as things go forward, can you get like JB Hunt, a lot of big orders from JB Hunt and others?
There's a lot to see and a lot to watch in the market, especially autonomous trucking from a model perspective. As we look at the market, what do we need to watch for next week? It's the first week of August. Anything big coming down the pipe?
Well, since we're doing this before Amazon earnings, maybe we'll get a Zooks comment on the Amazon call? No, no chance. No chance that there's Amazon comments. But the big ones are Uber and Lyft reporting next week on the same day. Uber in the morning, Lyft in the afternoon. Also DoorDash, Instacart, Serve Robotics, Oster. I mean, the earnings season continues strong for me next week.
The one thing that you and I both know next week, Uber's going to get a lot of questions on autonomy, and we're probably going to get a lot of really good insight into their autonomy strategy. Until then, the future is bright, the future is autonomous, the future is revenue. Walt, until next week.